Welcome back to the Monday Muse. Today I'm going to talk about a lie that has been sold to us for decades, hundreds of years. And it's one that's keeping you stuck, exhausted, and disconnected from your power. And I don't care what position you're in, if it's a leader, if it's a parent, if it's a coworker, if it's a friend, we're all leading our lives in one way or another. And this lie applies to us all. And it is this, that good people or good leaders don't have problems. Good leaders have it all figured out. Good leaders are strong and confident and unshakable in hard times. And yeah, sometimes we give lip service to, oh yeah, it's been really hard, but it's always with this air of, I've got it all under control. And so what that means is that for those of us who are human and struggling and feeling overwhelmed or doubting ourselves or uncertain if we're leadership material or up for whatever it is that life is placing in front of us, we feel inadequate. And it's such garbage because the most confident people or leaders are the ones who can admit that they don't have all the answers, that they know when they're wrong. The most powerful humans are the ones who lead from their humanity, not from a facade. But we've been conditioned to learn the opposite. We've been taught that leadership is never admitting that you're wrong, having a mask of invincibility, and that showing any vulnerability is weakness. Man, this is something that even women have taken on in mass proportion. We are so afraid of vulnerability, of looking vulnerable. We don't even know what it would look like to do that. And that if we're uncertain about something, well, we're just admitting failure. So what do we end up doing instead? We end up performing instead of living. We pretend to have confidence that we don't feel. Am I alone in this? How many people can relate to this? And here's a big one. We make decisions from our egos instead of from wisdom. I say this often because of the way that we are put together, the way that the human mammal machine works. We're pretty much just egos talking to egos at this point because it's impossible to be present all day long, truly present and remembering yourself all day long. So we end up making our decisions and living our lives from this persona that we've created. Someone who needs to have all the answers, someone who can't be vulnerable, someone who has it all together, instead of plugging into a deeper wisdom that would require us to get a lot more present in that moment. And the truth is we exhaust ourselves trying to maintain this image that really isn't real. It's more just what our mind tells us we're supposed to be or we need to be, or our ego gets all worked up about and says, I have to be. And this is what happens. We become what I call sophisticated sleepwalkers. We look good. We look like everything, we've got everything on point. We look awake, but really inside, we're dying. We're empty. We're fearful. We're doubting. We're not matching the way that we look outside of ourselves. And I'm not saying we have to walk around with our shirt on our sleeve all the time. That's not what this is about. I think there's a balance that we can reach where we are authentically ourselves. And part of being authentically yourself is plugging in to the confidence that is you. We're not insecure all the time. But when we get really caught up in hitting all of these external markers and we forget the experience that's happening inside of us, we completely lose ourselves in the process. And as I've said before, a client of mine coined this term for me, success without self is just another kind of stuck. And I know this, quite honestly, because I lived it. I got into a profession where I was the expert. And I think I did that on purpose because I needed to have that confidence. I needed to feel like I had all the answers. And my mind helped me get through graduate school and learn all of these great things that other people didn't know. Even other people didn't even know about themselves, right? Because I was studying humans. I was studying psychology. And I looked the part. I had a good practice. I taught at the graduate level. I looked like I had everything together. And yet, really, the truth was that I made all of my decisions, maybe not all of them, but a majority of them, based on what other people were going to think. It was a terrifying way to live, to be honest. If I look back on it now, the amount of time that I really was caught up in fear of what other people were going to think of me, or that I was going to look bad, or that I was going to look like a loser, or that I was going to upset people, it was exhausting. And honestly, that's what got me in jail, right? I mean, like that, the only road that you're in a jail of your own at that point anyway. So the only road that road is going to take you is to jail. And I was so disconnected from my authentic self, how I really felt, what I really needed, that I didn't even recognize what was happening. I was checking the boxes and I was denying that I was not in a marriage that was one that was right for me, that I wasn't really being the best mother I could be. And there were so many things while I really enjoyed my practice that I could have been doing and would have been doing if I hadn't been so busy performing in the play that was my life. And when you abandon that inner knowing consistently, you end up making choices that aren't yours. And that's exactly what I did. I made choices, not that other people were telling me that I needed to make choices, but I thought that it was the right thing to do. I imagined that that's what these other people would want, whether it was from my childhood and this, phantom voice in my head that knew that this isn't what really good people do, or this is what, I would make decisions that way, or whether it was in my marriage, which was extremely codependent and just trying to make him happy all the time. And it wasn't my job, and nor was he in a place in his life where he was going to be happy. And so when I ended up spending that night in jail, that was really the wake-up call for me, where I was like, oh my God, I have been living my whole life believing that I was unworthy, really believing it, like believing that I was unlovable. And it was shocking when I had that realization because I had been pretending to have it all together for so long. And everyone thought I had it together because, listen, I was good at what I did. I was a great psychotherapist. I was a great instructor. I was a really good professor. I was a great supervisor of other clinicians. And I did my own work. I was a great therapy patient myself. I always knew to ask for help. And that was a little help that I got in this lifetime, that I knew I could ask for help. And that's a gift, quite honestly, because many people don't even have that. But I always had a place that I could go and talk about what needed to be talked about, and knew that in some sense I didn't have to go it alone. But I was sleepwalking because I didn't really have any idea the amount to which I was performing and putting pressure on myself and not making my own decisions, making them because I was worried about, oh my gosh, someone would be upset, or what are they going to think, or I need to look this way or that way. And so real leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to sit with the questions. And this is something I do so much more now, not just in my profession, but in my personal life, in my own growth journey, just not having to know. I mean, I can tell you, I could give you a really great analysis of exactly what's going on in my life, or my emotions, my personal life with my kids, my family, my business. I could really package it up nicely. I mean, listen, I worked in multiple hospitals. I gave case summaries all the time. I presented to teams. I could do that and intellectualize my whole life. But the truth of the matter is, there is so much more going on than what we can see and feel and even begin to know. We have no clue. It's like Red Hawk says, he always refers to himself as an idiot. And I used to think, can he say that? He knows so much and he's so wise and I learned so much from him and everything. But it's like, no, oh my God, I am an idiot. Like, I have no idea. We can see an infinitesimal amount with our human 5 senses. There's so much more happening. There's so much more to learn and so much more to know. I don't know if, I wake up one morning and I'm feeling down because I'm working off ancestral trauma, or because I didn't get a good night's sleep, or because I'm not looking forward to something that day. I have no idea. It could be multiple things. And listen, I have really good diagnostic skills, and I'm still really good at what I do. And I have a really good idea what's going on with the clients that I meet with. And very often, most of the time, they're like, oh yeah, that lands 100%. But sitting with the question and being able to say, I don't know what's best for everybody, because only you know that. Only I know that for me. At the end of the day, there's a soft, quiet voice inside each one of us that knows what's best for us, that knows what authenticity looks like and feels like to us. It's not about being invulnerable. It's about being able to sit with vulnerability. It's about being able to look at what comes up for you when you feel vulnerable. If you, and this happens a lot, if you want something in your life, if you want love in your life, you have to be vulnerable enough to receive it. And I see that so often with people who are even in relationships but want to be in better relationships, or people who are looking for relationships, or people who don't even realize that they're not getting what they want from their spouse because they're busy doing other things. But you have to be able to be open in order to receive. And when we know everything and we have all the answers, we're not open, and we're not going to receive in business or in life. It's just not about being perfect. It's about being real. And then oftentimes there's a question like, well, if I'm real, then it means I have to wear everything on my sleeve and, talk about what a hot mess I am. And that's not real either. That is also performing. That's performing that I'm inferior, that I'm not enough. Because like I said before, there is a part inside of you that knows your strength, that knows your courage, that knows who you are. And so showing up like a hot mess and just saying, oh, I don't know, and I'm everything, it's really just more of the same. It's more of that sophisticated sleepwalking. This is about being able to get really quiet and really still and hearing the truth that's inside you. And that's going to come out differently in any given moment, because we are emotional beings and we fluctuate tremendously in what's happening inside ourselves. So anyway, let me give you some examples. Someone who is performing, a performing person or leader, is going to say, I know exactly what we should do. But a real leader says, I don't have all the answers and I'm committed to figuring this out with you. A performing leader is going to need to have the answer to a problem right away. They're going to sleepwalk through that whole decision-making process. But a real leader is going to, and I don't even want to use the word real leader, I want to use authentic person, is going to not have to jump to a conclusion based on the emotions that are unconsciously coming up inside of them. They're going to take a moment to slow down and to be part of a collective process. Just because we make a decision quickly doesn't mean that we're decisive. It could just mean that we're anxious. So taking the time to make decisions from wisdom is going to hold you in good stead with yourself and others. So someone who's performing is hiding their struggles. And sometimes, I can't tell you how much I hear this, I know people who will tell their struggles, but they tell them like they've got it all figured out. And that's exactly what I used to do. I would tell you what was going on, but through a very clarified analysis of this is what's going on, but I've got it all figured out. And, I see all the greatness in it and how life is just working for me and all of that stuff. That too can be a performance, and it can keep us from really getting plugged into what's going on at a deeper level, which slows our development in every area of our life. So to be authentic would mean to share your process in a way that's appropriate and helpful to the people in your life, whether that's your team or whether it's your family. Sometimes something's going on at home and I need to share my process with my kids, but it's got to be done in an appropriate way. I don't want to put emotional, heaviness on them, but if they see that something's up with me, or I'm dealing with something, or I'm working something through, then I'm going to share with them. Yeah, this is what's going on for me. This is what I'm working on. And guess what? That gives them permission to work on things too, to not have everything all buttoned up as well. And it also gives them permission to say, yeah, you know what? There wasn't everything about my parenting that was fabulous, right? Like they're still working off issues and things that happened as a result of what I directly did or didn't do to them or for them in their lives. When we're performing, we're trying to control outcomes, whether it's with our team or our clients or our families. And that comes from our sleepwalking, our unconscious need or belief that everything will be okay if this happens this way. But a real leader of a business or a family shows up authentically and knows that whatever comes is going to be okay. And they are okay with whatever arises. It doesn't mean that they might not need to take some time to regulate or to accept or to digest. But ultimately, whatever it is is going to be okay. And here's the thing, the people around you, they can feel the difference. They can sense when you're performing and when you're being real. And when you are real, like I said, it just gives people around you the opportunity to be real. If you don't, you're going to end up in a culture or family or team or whatever where nobody's telling the truth. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? A culture where no one is telling the truth. And the problems don't really get addressed. And everyone is walking on eggshells. Boy, this sounds really familiar the more I start talking about it. When we're leading from appearances, we're just not being authentic. But when you're willing to be human, it's going to create a psychological safety for the people around you, and it's going to allow them to do the same. And so this is what I call the awake advantage, being awake to the mammal machine, the process that's running all of the shows, so that you can make more aligned, authentic choices. You make decisions from inner knowing instead of from fear, instead of an automatic program that goes off in your system that you find yourself knee-jerking a response or a decision or a reaction without even really knowing it. And you create things instead of controlling things. Do you see how creation is opening, controlling is contracting? So how do we do this? I mean, the first step is always going to be radical self-honesty. You have to see what you're doing. You have to be willing to look at, where in my life am I performing right now? Where are you pretending that you have confidence that you don't have? And I would say the other thing too, I would say, where are you acting insecure where you don't need to, where you know that you have capacity? Where are you making decisions based on what you think you should do or what you think other people want instead of what you feel is right? I'm talking about something as simple as where you go to dinner. Are you obsessing about what other people are going to think or where they need to go? Or are you just plugging into yourself and saying, this is my preference. I'm okay with whatever, but this is what I'd like to do. Or maybe I'm really not okay with whatever tonight. This is what I want to do. Are you guys okay with that? So it's really about taking this radical responsibility for who you've been being and taking a moment to wake up and look at, who have I been being? And you can do this just by looking at the last day or the last week. Just watch yourself walk through your daily life like you're watching yourself on a camera, kind of reflect on what you did on Monday, what you did on Tuesday, what happened over the weekend. Who were you being? And then ask, okay, what was behind some of those? Was I fearful about what people were going to think in this moment? Was I trying to control a situation because I was afraid I didn't like the outcome? Who are you being? And then, of course, the most important thing is that you don't judge yourself after that, and that you do the work of reconnecting with your authentic self, the work of settling your nervous system, doing your focused breathing, doing your meditation, doing your PQ reps, whatever it is that you need to do to settle the brain and body down so that you can find that deeper inner knowing. It means sitting with uncertainty and trusting that you don't have all the answers, trusting that the universe is much more vast than you are. And it may have a completely different plan for you in place than you have. And it takes a lot of focused attention because you have to choose this presence even when you don't feel like it. You have to choose to behave in a different way even when you don't feel like it. So when I heard that voice that said I was unworthy, I had to make decisions that would be the decisions of someone who felt worthy. Otherwise, I wasn't going to attract those things into my life. And sometimes that would make me very uncomfortable. I mean, I remember way back when I had to cancel dates with guys that just didn't maybe there was actually this one guy, I remember. He was really cute and we had a date scheduled and I thought, oh my God, he's so cute. And I really wanted to go on the date with him. But then I started looking at his profile and I was like, oh my God, he's a motorhead. He likes to spend time in the garage. I'm not going to enjoy that. That's not something that I want in my life. But before that, it would have been, oh, is he going to like me? And he would look really good. And I had to cancel the date. And it's not like I had a ton coming in. And I was like, I'm not gonna go on that date because that is not gonna be in alignment with what I want in my life. I canceled dates with guys that just didn't really act all that interested. It was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna waste a babysitter on that. So sometimes we have to make decisions that we are insecure about in the interest of aligning more authentically with who we really are and who we deserve to be and the things in our life that we deserve. Sometimes when you're talking with your team, you might have every part of you wanting to shut a process down because your nervous system is saying this is not okay. But you have to go against that and say, no, to be an authentic leader here, to be an awake person here, I need to let this unravel and not let my nervous system run the show. So when we're really living awake in the awake advantage, we are in acceptance of what's happening in our lives rather than in resistance of it. And I find in general, I was talking to my son, I have my youngest son who has a disability, and he was telling me this the other day. Because I was complaining that he was falling more and we need to get him new shoes. And he said, Mom, he said, first of all, I'm not falling more. And second of all, he said, I am an Olympic faller. He said, most people, they worry about falling. He said, what you have to do is you just have to completely surrender to the fall. You just have to collapse. And he said, most people try and stop themselves from falling. I don't. When I fall, I literally just let go and let myself fall. And he said, and then you won't get hurt. Because he does fall a lot. And I'm always worried about him breaking a bone or something. But it was such a great metaphor for what I'm talking about right now. Can we be in acceptance of what is rather than resistance? Can we surrender to the process that is our lives instead of performing what we think we should be in order to get what we think we want, which isn't even half the time what we really do want? So maybe what we could practice this week is all of us looking at one area of our lives in which we may be performing instead of being completely authentic, as small as it is. Maybe it's in a team meeting, maybe it's decision making, maybe it's going out to dinner. Maybe it's how you handle conflict in your relationship. And let's just practice being a little more real, not oversharing. It's not what I mean. Being appropriate. And when I say being appropriate, I don't mean being appropriate for other people, maybe if it's children, but I mean being appropriate for what you yourself feel comfortable sharing and doing in that moment. Because we have to honor the process that we're in and where we are in that process. Just be more human. Notice what happens. Notice how your team responds. Notice how your family responds. And notice how you feel. Because here's what I've really noticed. The leaders who are willing to be real are the leaders that people want to follow. I can't tell you the difference that it's made even in my family with my kids since I really started practicing. Many, many years ago, just practicing, this is my process. They might be going through something and maybe I'll say, what I learned about myself is X, Y, or Z. And not commenting it all in there, but just sharing that I didn't really know, or even in this moment, I don't really know, but this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm thinking might be going on. This is what I'm thinking I might want to do. Just sharing that process and letting people know that you don't have all the answers, nor do you want to have all the answers, because quite frankly, it's exhausting when you're the one that has all the answers, because then everybody is always coming to you. And then you start to get irritated that nobody can do anything on their own. Am I right or am I right? So the leaders who can admit their humanity are the ones who create the cultures where other people can be human too. And let's be honest, the world does not need more perfect leaders, more leaders who think they know everything. The world needs more real ones. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button, leave a comment or review, because that's how more people get to hear this podcast. And think about, share. What's one area where you know that you're performing instead of being more real? And let's start getting real about it.